Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Very excited for today's episode. We're talking to an Emmy Award-winning media advisor. And what he does is he helps you grow personal and founder-led companies by scaling content distribution, market presence, and media reach. Very excited to be rocking out today with Vinnie Potestivo. Hey, Vinnie, you ready to rock?
Yo, Tim. Well, yeah, man, I'm born to Ready Rock. Are you kidding? I was
Love
born for
it.
this.
Cool, man. Well, let's start off here in a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I appreciate this. Can I start from day one?
You sure can.
Oh, man, I was frustrated. I was in college. I was a senior, October 1998. I'll never forget it. And I wanted to be in casting so bad. I was good at databases. I was good at computers. I took out an ad on something called Backstage. It was a magazine back then. Now it's .com. And it was the opportunities for on-camera opportunities. So you would meet actors. So I said, I want to be a casting director. Send me your headshot so that I can keep you in mind for future projects. And I had maybe just under 700 submissions sent to my dorm room at Wagner. Sent them to Vinnie Potestivo, Student Box 577, One Campus Road. I had no clue what I was in for. I had no clue that I would end up that data. So by the way, 700 people respond to me. I go to databases. I take all that information and I start organizing it the way that I just know. I know what to do with data, and then it's how to use it afterwards. I started staying in touch with them. I had access to this magazine that I said Backstage, and I would email people opportunities. I worked in the computer center at Wagner College. I would scan in an opportunity, a casting notice, and I would pick a couple of people in my database that I thought might be right for it, and I would send it to them. And then one day I saw this ad that said, MTV is in Times Square and just show up at 4:30 on 1515 Broadway and bring, XYZ. And I said, let's go. We don't have class. Let's go. And I went and I met this casting director. Long story short, I got to ask Whitney. Well, the short story is I was supposed to ask Whitney Houston a question, what it's like recording with Mariah Carey on the Prince of Egypt soundtrack. When she heard the question, she passed. She said no, she didn't want to answer that question. And I turned to the casting director and I said, if you ever need more talent, if you ever need, any help, I'm here. I've got a database of 700 people in this New York area that are looking for opportunities like this. And he was like, what? And that was the beginning of my MTV career. I didn't get into MTV because I was a great casting director yet. I hadn't even developed any of those interpersonal skills or networking skills. I was just really good at making sure that I was taking information. The information I was receiving was collected and used, and I was able to support the talent executives there. And ultimately, when MTV in '99 launched a talent development department, I was the first person they hired to help bring in structure to, back then it used to be want to be a VJ, all
Yep.
these big weird casting calls that we would do. And it was my little database that was the backbone of those giant opportunities. And I
Wow.
got to work with the best and the top 1%er creators, Beyonce and Ashton Kutcher, Sharon Osbourne, Jessica Simpson. I mean, these are people who came through MTV because of the audience that MTV had. I got to work with them on their projects. I got to help them develop their new reality and then watch reality TV boom as a response to when people take control of their lives and take action and let people see those actions, that reality changes. So all that from a little database in my dorm room. And I created Vinnie Potestivo Entertainment a week later because back then you needed to have a business to get insurance. So like if I wanted to have a service, I needed to work for myself, and myself needed to be a business. So the idea of freelancing hadn't even occurred to me.
Yeah.
And then I returned back to my business in 2007. It took some shapes and shifts. And ultimately in 2015, 2016, I was able to downsize and get to the point where I can work from home. And I'm excited to continue sharing that journey. But thanks for letting me start with the Victor. That's a fun one, though. It's nice when you look back in history and you're able to connect the dots that way.
Yeah.
Some struggles in between, but it all worked out pretty well.
Well, and yeah, that's amazing, and it's amazing that, it must have been so awesome to be able to work with some of these big, big names and big talents, right?
I
It's
mean, they're
awesome.
big now, which is weird to think. It's a weird thing. Isn't that weird to say? Like Beyonce and Jessica Simpson and I mean, Ashton Kutcher was world famous. He was in movies, and Ozzy Osbourne was famous, but Sharon and Kelly and Jackie, Jessica Simpson and Nicola. These were
Yeah.
people that started their career at MTV the same time I did. We were in the same conference rooms for the same talent showcases and that small sort of community building piece that happens in A&R and networking. So I was very lucky. By the way, I ended up having to have worked with Mandy Moore since she was 15 until
Wow.
she, until where she is now. So I'm so lucky to have had friends and people like that. But I also watched The Sopranos and became friends with Jamie Lynn Sigler and some people who like people say, who do you get starstruck by? And I'm like, sometimes I'm like my friends. It's like
Yeah.
the weirdest thing that you can't separate it. I'm like, why would I ever want to separate it? Like, this is like the magical part of us, and you want me to like not get to enjoy it? This is I'm not leveraging it. I'm not exploiting it, but like
Yeah.
I'm not blind to it. I've always been attracted to talent. Actually, I dropped my voice as I said that. I've always been attracted to talent. Because someone in my life told me as a kid I didn't have any, and I had to find it. And I found a way to find talent in myself, and the thing that makes me unique and special and fascinating, whatever talent, whatever we want to call it. And then I got really good at helping other people figure that out with their businesses. I didn't realize this until maybe 5 years ago, but sure, I was a casting director at MTV and I've cast many shows on Bravo, but like I also bring businesses along with those characters. Like the women of the Housewives of New Jersey that I cast have businesses. Those businesses are on television just as much as those people are. And when I realized that I can get businesses and people on television, that's what I've been doing my whole life. And I appreciate production. I find the television industry frustrating just because of the checks and gates and balances and approvals, and ultimately it's an advertising driven world, so it's a lot of challenges there. But none of that. I could not keep TV on a pedestal when we, the people, have the ability to create IP, intellectual property that we own. Ashton doesn't own Punked. Nick Cannon doesn't own Wild 'N Out. TJ Lat, well, Buna Murray actually owns the challenge, but MTV owns the challenge. Buna Murray doesn't even own the challenge. MTV owns Real World. There are
Wow.
lots of formats that I can give you that were pitched to Sweden and Norway and other countries that allow the creator to retain rights and
Okay.
then license that. So like Apprentice, for example, was created outside of America. It was brought to America and it was licensed. And we had 3 different hosts on Apprentice, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Martha Stewart being 2 of the lesser known ones.
Hmm.
But the production company made a boku bucks because they own that content. They own that the licensing rights to that content. I shouldn't say they own that content. The content's for hire and the platform does. But helping people leverage that media, it's not about creating it. Creating a reality TV show does not change your reality unless someone sees it. That's when reality changes.
Yeah.
So you can record all you want and you can make all the changes you want, and hopefully those changes are real changes and those have impact, and then people will see that impact. But it was in the visibility of the change that reality changed, and that's what I experienced firsthand at MTV with even Diddy. When Puffy would start to come to MTV and almost just hang out, he would just show up for like when TRL was on and just kind of co-host, and it was kind of funny at first. And he's a big star, and it's kind of cool that he just came across the street. But he said it once. He was like, "Of course I'm going to be here. This is the place to be." 3:30 to 4:30 back then, the early 2000s, was the place to be if you wanted to connect with the world that was watching or modern creators. And I truly think that what's happening in podcasting right now is the same thing.
Yeah.
No one owns podcasting, and
Nope.
it has the most promise. It's creative Play-Doh, and I've already leveraged it into TV shows and book deals. And in 2006 at MTV, I took a podcast called Man and Wife and turned it into a late night sex talk show. So like converting podcast to broadcast is something that it's weird to say. It's almost been 15 years now, I guess it's been
Yeah.
happening. And even more so now that podcasters have the press power that we have, the visibility
Yep.
that we have, and that there's education out there. People understand now, businesses understand the KPIs, the reach that podcasters have, and how different that is than the influencer world of independent media.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a bit of a playing field leveler. You know, because like we just said, I mean, before, if you needed to get something done, you're puffy, you're going to friggin' MTV. That's where it
That's
is.
it. Yeah.
Now, I mean, he could. I mean, if this were today, he'd
Yep.
probably have a podcast. He would have started a
Absolutely.
podcast. That's what
In
he would
fact,
be
I'm gonna
doing.
look that I'm gonna reach that out and find out where he is with that, by the way.
He probably has
Um,
one.
I saw this platform called Podmatch, and there's about like, I think as of the end of 2022, I think there was about like just under 13 or 14,000 people there. I'm exclusively, and this is like just an emotional exclusive, but I'm exclusively meeting hosts and guests in this smaller community because of Diddy. Because I remember the visibility he had in a small room. He didn't need to make big moves to have big reactions and big impact. And that when a smaller group of people have the ability to have visibility into what you're doing, there's a stronger emotional connection with that. I would want to be in the studio when Diddy was in the studio, because when Diddy's in the studio, people start talking about new projects and new businesses, and things start to bubble up. Like, but I had access to that room. I had a card that gave me access to that room, and I leveraged that. I did an interview with Christina Milian, and she goes, "Vinny, do you remember when you introduced me to Janet Jackson?" And I was like, "Wait, what? You're gonna have to tell me this story." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I was in your room. We auditioned. You auditioned for a show she hosted called Wannabe, and we saw on the email that Janet Jackson was down in the studio, and the studio was closed. They weren't letting staff in. But I had a different clearance, and I knew that I would be able to get in through talent. So I said, let's go downstairs. Janet Jackson's downstairs. Not going to be difficult. I can get in the door, and the rest is up to you." But
Yeah.
leveraging, getting people in, that was my, by the way, that was my secret sauce at MTV. As a supervising casting executive, I get credit for casting Laguna Beach and The Hills and Mandy Moore and Kelly Osbourne, a tremendous amount of talent that I got to work with. The truth of the matter is very rarely did I ever find the person with my own eyes. Like very rarely did I ever say like, Lala, she's the one, bring her into MTV. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I looked for people who were outliers, mavericks in their industries, and I left that door to MTV open for them. And those people became executive producers and stars of their own show and empowered. And I would give them information. I would say MTV is looking for a half-hour show on a Thursday. It needs to appeal to this demographic. Or we would get information that says like, we have a studio that we need to use, so we have to we have a line in the budget that's zeroed out, so we have to create a project around the space that we isn't going to cost us anything, and that's going to get the show greenlit. So helping people understand how to shape shift their ideas and concepts. It's really not about it used to be about the idea a bit, and it used to be about access to talent and worlds. More so now than ever, it's all about execution. And that's why you're going to see and continue to see more celebrities hopping on podcasting. It's IP they own, like we just discussed. It's IP they own that they
Yeah.
now leverage and
Yeah.
license. In response to, I have a podcast is my podcast name. I got that sucker registered. And then I created ihaveapodcast.com as a Google News verified platform. So when you have a blog, and if you have a podcast and you have a blog, and hopefully you do, and you're out there sharing the word, you can take your blog RSS the same way that podcasts have RSS. Blogs, actually, I know you know this, but blogs had RSS links first.
Yep.
And you take that RSS link to Google News. So go to news.google.com and add your blog as a source to Google News. And what that allows you to do is have visibility in a marketplace where thousands, if not millions of other websites are looking for content that you're writing. And because you're on the Google News verified exchange, they pull your RSS, and now your content is appearing on their platform. And then I realized once I did that with Google News, it was really easy to do it to Bing PubHub and Yahoo News and Flipbook. Apple News you got to go through the developer, and there's a couple of extra steps, but staying in touch with your fans, building that relationship with your fans, giving your fans access on different levels, like that helps the process. That it's more than accountability. It's empowering. And by the way, every leader needs a following, and every following needs a leader. So there's a reciprocity in doing and opening up these gates. But that's, as I think of some of the celebrities and stars brands that I've known, and us podcasters even, right? The two things we have in common is we create content no one asks for that we hope people like.
Yeah.
And we need fans. We need fans. We need people to support us and champion us, and not just like mention our name when we're not in the rooms, but like scream our names when we're not in the rooms. That's how I felt about TJ Lavin, who hosts MTV's The Challenge. TJ and I were friends when ultimately it became time to cast that host for The Challenge. First, we got Johnny Mosley, then God rest his soul, Dave Mira. But both of those were high earning athletes that were seasonal. I needed someone who was more neutral. And TJ and I had a killer conversation about my sexuality at a point in time where I was so insecure. And in the early 2000s, unfortunately, at a publicly traded company, there was no rights and privileges. So it was different than it is now. And with TJ, an athlete, I found that I would be covered, that he would actually fight for my rights and stand up for me in rooms and in the future, because I've seen him do it for other people. And it's so cool to see him being one of the other. MTV's got a lot of old white guys on that network right now. Thank God for Nick Cannon too. It's Rob Dyrdek, TJ Lavin. They just, so it's cool to see him be the face of adversity and challenging on that. But that's me being his fan. He allowed me into a time where I can champion him, and he kept doing things as an athlete. He kept winning and losing and winning and losing, and I'm along on the journey for that. As a fan, I'm winning and losing with you. Like I feel I'm on that emotional journey with you. That makes us root for you. Failing sometimes in front of our audience, and this is a strategy, is intentional, by the way, because it's really, really awesome to see people get back up on their feet and land. Sometimes, and I've known this to be true, sometimes people fail specifically so that they can succeed afterwards. Because if you don't do it, sometimes the media will do it for you, and it's better for it to be on your terms than theirs. Podcasting allows us to do that now.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we talk about the bad note as well on this podcast often, and the theme of that is that every bad note ends up being a good note in the end, because you learn something from it. But yeah, that's a really good point that you're making, that if you can fail on your terms, it's way easier to handle than something blindsiding you, right?
I'm thinking, in my mind right now, I'm thinking of that Ashley Simpson moment on SNL in 2007, where she was so new and it was such a huge opportunity. And it was the big opportunity for her band. And it was the first time her band was really in an ownership position. And what happened on that show was the cue to the song was in the pedal, and the drummer's pedal, as it often is, and the wrong cue was synced incorrectly, so the wrong song played, and she didn't know how to recover from it. They cut to commercial break, and my phone blew up. Like the advertisers were furious. I mean, what a stupid time in media where people had opinions about like someone messed up on stage. There was an example where I can promise you that was not done intentionally, but the lesson learned, and I had this conversation with Jo Simpson, with her father specifically. We wanted her to be empowered. We wanted her to be the boss, but also we knew that this was new to her and that mistakes can happen, but you don't want to unempower somebody. And there was a real lesson learned there, in making sure that from a technical perspective, that recovered regardless of expertise versus experience. Those could be two different things. And on live television, something like that matters on live TV. And that's I hate to say this, but like a permanent mark on your record until you do something that, goes on top of that permanent mark. And then people forget, what happened next.
Hi, it's Mark Mawhinney from Natural Born Coaches, and I want to give two very big thumbs up to Tim Melanson and his Creative Crew agency. I have been using them for a long time, and I am 100% happy. They get the job done right, they are fast, and they let me focus on my business. I don't have to worry about anything. So again, I want to give them two very big thumbs up. I have no problem recommending them. I don't give testimonials for everyone because my name is attached to it, but I gladly do so for Tim and the Creative Crew agency. So use them, you won't regret it, and good luck.
Yeah, and that's the thing. She was probably she was fairly new in her career, right?
A year. I mean, as a singer performer in charge of her, yeah, exactly. Maybe under 2 years singing and in front of people. Yeah.
And that goes to show, so I'm a musician. I've been playing
Yeah.
for a long time. If something like that were to happen to me right now, I'd be fine. I would
Yeah.
roll with it.
Yeah.
But that's a matter of like, a lot of people like to fast track their way to success. And that's one of the things that can happen if you fast track your way to success. You
This
don't
is
experience the things in a small bar with one person watching, that you would, oh, wow, what that, because, that did similar stuff happens to me.
sure.
You fall flat on your face, but there's two people in the bar. Oh well, you know, next time I'll know what to do. And
Yeah.
then by the time you get to a live show in SNL, you know what to do, right?
Hmm.
So I guess maybe that's a way to embrace all of the struggles that you go through in small rooms before you get to those big shows,
Oh
right?
yeah, my anxiety kicks in. Everything you're saying is like triggering anxiety for me. And I have this quote that I'm just saying in the back of my head that says the fastest way to get to where you're going is slowly. Just say that again, like the fastest way to get to where you are going is slowly.
Um,
And it's not a nice play on words that just sounds good when I say that. I can actually literally feel my blood pressure starting to go down. It gives me, it's this, by the way, I am all about the scenic route. It gives me the ability to go into smaller rooms and make one-on-one relationships with people that I can do. I can do that easily. But when we talk about some of these celebrities or even just experts in our industry that have the visibility of thousands, or we feel we have the weight of those eyeballs, that's where the relationship is tested. I'm taking the long approach to podcasting, and I've carved out 2, if not 3 days a week to recording other people's podcasts. I have about 150 days a year that I'm recording other people's podcasts. 6 days a year I record mine because mine is weekly, and I record 4 episodes in a day with 2 people, and my episodes are 10 minutes long. So I'm just creative inspiration. Here's a tactic that I know works. I sit down with somebody that I've worked with before. In 2023, I've got Mandy Moore, Ja Rule, which is a good one. We talk, which go back and listen to this Ja Rule one. We talk about the power of collaboration, which is really sick. Because for me, him and Ashanti is like the male voice and the female voice vocals. Like he was the king of that for me in the early 2000s. And when I learned that he turned to the soft female voice to soften his own tone, because to him, he thought he sounded spooky. So this is part of, like, when I say taking inventory of the people around you, looking around, not focusing on how am I going to get to the next level, but who am I going to get to the next level with. That's where, Tim, you and I forever, you've changed the alchemy of my output. Like this conversation input changes, what happens next. And I think that's what I'm doing here presently, is working on my one-on-ones, so that if I'm lucky enough, and when I'm lucky enough to be in a top 100 position or
Yep.
whatever that is, that I'll look around the room and I'll recognize everybody and
Yep.
I'll know you all, and we'll all have done it together. And the last thing I want to do is fast track any part of that, because
Not worth it.
yeah,
You're not ready.
my vision of how I want success to look like, if I'm winning an award, and I'm thinking people who aren't in the room in front of people who I know are. And I think and I'm getting those people who aren't in the room next, by the way. That this is always my MO. So you'll see this with me. And that's powerful. That's powerful. And now with podcasting, we can own it. And for the longest time, to build an audience, you needed to leverage your visibility on a single platform with a single project and a single, performer or group. And in the singularity, we build our audiences. But it's in the collaboration where community comes from. Like, that's where fandom can really explode. Beyonce didn't need to go to Coachella. She didn't need a special super deal for an extra $1 billion, whatever that we say why she did Coachella.
Yeah.
She did Coachella for us.
Yeah.
She did Coachella so that Beyonce fans who usually see Beyonce in Beyonce stadiums are now seeing Beyonce with other artist fans. And that collaboration, that space collaboration, is what creates community. Is when 2 audiences collide, 2 or more, I should say, is community. And podcasters are great at it. We're inherently great at it because we like and appreciate working with each other. Artists, a little territorial, for different reasons, but we have more rights. Think of this, podcasters. We almost have more rights than Beyonce and Mandy Moore and Taylor Swift. Like, these people, we hear about their catalogs and who owns it, and It's
We sure do.
IP is a tough market, but it shouldn't scare you from sharing your expertise, especially considering that no one owns podcasting. What's going to happen? I'm going to show up with Tim, and Tim's going to ask me a tough question that I might not get right. So what? It's
Yep.
Tim. Like I'm not. It's
We're
not.
just having a conversation.
It's not
Yeah.
like it's not SNL in front of millions of people that could potentially ruin my entire. That being said, I know, I want to point out that these podcasts are evergreen and powerful. Nick can. I can name some people who have had conversations on podcasts in an evergreen capacity where it's come back to bite you. Time changes facts, unfortunately. It doesn't I'm sorry, facts don't change. The truth changes. So it's a tricky dichotomy between what we're recording and what we're publishing and how it's being perceived. But don't let the fear of that set you back from creating an audience, from diving into building fans, and from leveraging those different fans. For me in high school, I had a bunch of different friend groups. So I would say like I was a community organizer. When you have all those different friend
Yeah,
groups
me
coming
too.
together, that was a moment of community for me, for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about fans then. What's your, strategy towards building fans in your business?
First off, it's about visibility, discoverability, and shareability. I think we want to get discovered so that we have more opportunities for monetization, for awareness, for growth, for conversion. I can go down all the list of things that come as a result of being discovered. To get discovered, you need to be visible. So this idea of creating content, being a guest on podcast, writing books, getting myself, my voice, my words out there is visibility. But most people think to increase visibility would be to increase discoverability. And I have to be honest, if I were just to increase your visibility, all that would make you be is the person who people say, oh man, that podcast again, that TV show again. Like, I have no value in sharing you. It's like Mariah Carey in December 15th. We stopped talking about, it's a weird thing to say. We stopped talking about Mariah, the queen, because everyone's talked about it for 2 weeks and we're almost talked out about it and we don't feel valuable. I'm really grossly generalizing on the topic here, but trying to prove a point. We stopped sharing the fact that she's the queen because everyone's seen it, the Today Show, the GMA, everyone's covered it. It's no longer news, and us talking about it doesn't serve the community that we're sharing it with. So what do? A defense mechanism kicks in and says, ugh, that person again.
Yep.
Because it's almost better to share that disdain for the level of visibility. So instead of increasing visibility to get more discoverability, I want you to increase shareability. And I want you to really think about this. These are things that we're doing that are holding us back from getting discovered, is being more shareable, quicker sound bites. Some people will ask me, what's the perfect podcast episode length? I'm like, all of them. Like every single one, every single minute interval is the best one, because there will be days that I will come to your podcast and I will say, I would love to give this a chance. What should I listen to? And I look at your list and it says 45, 45, 45, 45, 45 minutes. I promise you, if one said 2 minutes, I promise you, I'm going to click on the one that gives me 2-minute sample of who you are.
Yep.
Quicker than the 45-minute sample of who you are. It's this awareness that people, viewers and listeners, have a very non-linear relationship with our content. We have to receive that. Like, I grew up in the 90s and 80s with TV Guide. I used to watch a channel called The Scroll, and I would slowly watch my shows come up. So much so that in the early 2000s, they actually put programming up on top, and it was like, here's advertising in a movie. Let's talk about the back, here's like when this movie was happening. And I would sit there and I would watch that because I didn't want to be out. I wanted to be in. I want to watch what everyone else is watching. And I need to be connected there. Building communities, building audiences, and allowing yourself to be highly shareable. If there was one metric I looked at in social media, it would be share. That's my goal. If anyone's using Chat GPT, whatever you do, whatever input you put it into, the next thing you say is make this more shareable. Make sure that people, and for me, that's where the value comes into play. That's how I can measure, am I providing value? More so than saves. Share to me, because like if I do a great job and I'm your landscaper, what's the best thing that if I'm your client and you're a landscaper, what's the best thing I could do for you? The most valuable thing I can do for you would be to share, network. Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh, call my friend. I got the best experience. I'm sharing experiences. I'm sharing results. I'm sharing your number, which is networking, high value touch points. It solves the problem to, if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, this shareability solves that problem. You know how people find out that it's always comes down to this. You know how people find out if the tree fell? Someone will say they take a photo and then what? Share it. They saw it and then what? Shared it. They wrote
Yeah.
about it and then what? Shared it. Like sharing is where, if you were to chase after anything, because I'm not a big fan of being behind stuff, especially
Yeah.
my goals. If you're going to chase after anything, chase after sharing.
Yeah.
That's like riding the waves behind a powerboat. That's what I mean. That's sharing, is carving a path for yourself, where your story can take your places, where your story can take your character. That's the power of sharing. And that's how I'm building these platforms. And that's how, and when I say platforms, it could be talent careers or media connects, however brands, have output. That's the media platform that I'm helping them build.
That is so good, because especially nowadays, visibility is easy to get. I mean, you create a whole whackload of social media, things. You can start to get a bunch of content out there. And I do work with a lot of companies that they do focus their metrics on how much visibility they can get. How can I get this out there? Get this out there. But they don't put as much thought into the message that they're getting out there in the first place, which is, how shareable is it? How are people going to share this into other people, or is it going to be all me putting it out there into a whole bunch of places? If I put it into one place and then it goes, that's way different, right?
Yeah. And also, I want to reframe this from creative. Also, how can I be? Okay, so say I'm not creative. Say I have zero creative skills, and maybe I have a jam band and some of those artistic creative skills, but I am talent. I am an accountant. I am a doctor. I am a florist. I am, a business runner that has nothing to do with creativity. How does shareability serve me? And I would say most of us are focused on sharing the story right now. A lot of us focus on the story, maybe even the character. And what I want to do is reposition you instead of the story provider, but as the source. That when you're seen as the source, when you are Disney, you can pitch other shows. But if you were Lion King, why would Lion King pitch Aladdin? That's so weird. I'm like the weirdest metaphor guy today, right now. I have no clue where my media is pulling from. But like, why, right? Like Lion King couldn't, Disney get you to those places because it's the source.
Yeah.
So in what I'm pointing out is, on LinkedIn, I've had a couple of brands reach out to me and ask if I can make videos for them and blah, 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 and maybe start to sponsor and work back and forth. And I have my own goals. So I reply back to them and I say, look, I'm, and the truth is I'm at capacity and I'm already focused on what I'm committed to over these next few months here in 2023. But if I can give you a quote, or if I can give you a quote or a fact or a data point that could help you in in some type of post or in some type of report that you're creating, I'd be happy to send you, or if you need a quote for like a news article, I'd be happy to send this to you. Now, they didn't ask me for a quote. They asked me to work with me.
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm busy. I'm focused, because I can get defocused, unfortunately, pretty easy. So I know my strengths. But I do throw out the fact that I'd love to offer value and how I can offer value is give you a quote. I didn't say, let me know how I can help you with that. I don't say that anymore. I learned that. I say, let me know how I can help you. I can write you a quote that you can leverage. And what that allowed me to do is create a relationship. And I have some really cool, deep relationships now with clients, sponsors that sponsor my content on a global perspective, because I know annually what I'm talking about, as opposed to needing to be transactional and of the story, because I'm seen as a source, not as the story. And by being the source, that allowed me to be in a bunch of end of 2022 reports for a bunch of different types of platforms that I was then able to create a LinkedIn audio event for, that we turned into a newsletter. And now I can show people how to network with a value, because that's kind of like what I like doing is like, by the way, credits Credits to me are I never thought about this until recently. I've been networking through creative credits for a long time. On IMDb, podcasters have the ability now to take our podcast as IP and put it as a title onto IMDb, the same way TV and film has as intellectual property. In December of 2022, IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database owned by Amazon, IMDb created a new job category, a meta tag called podcaster. So I can, through IMDb, an Amazon-owned company, I can give data points to that platform, like the awards that I've won, right? We talk about winning awards as visibility. How do you share awards? The thank you speech. We talk about thank you speeches more than the awards themselves. We talk about who didn't get nominated more than the people who win. So think of all the ways that we share this. And I want to point out that this is not a once in a lifetime opportunity. These are annualized events. And we realize that in media. There's a reason why there's a cycle. And this is an annual opportunity for press and visibility and more shareability and more discoverability. And I like pointing that out to us, to be seen as the source, to offer data points based on the action. We're working hard and we're creating data points. Google takes our search queries and turns it into data points. So why aren't we taking our actions and turning it into data points? IMDb.com is the only, and it's free. And anyone who wants I have vpe.tv/hub. It's a free creator hub where I've documented all the tactics that I'm sharing here, step by step. You don't need to spend a single penny to get on IMDb. And the benefits are ridiculous. The benefits are networking, the social proof, you're proving your expertise, and even possibly connecting awards. You're giving credits to all the people who maybe volunteer to work on your podcast, or paid to work on your podcast, but it becomes a point of discoverability for them. So when it was time for me to edit my podcast, I went to a series. There was a specific podcast that I wanted to make sure I had engineers working on my podcast, because I wanted people to know that I was a legit entertainment focused, and with my background, I wanted to have a little bit of technical expertise to my podcast, where I don't think most people actually need it. But I specifically wanted it, and picking and choosing the people that I work with, again, like that's inventory. That's the who, not the how, that gets me there. And that's my entire career is based on who, not how. My entire career, all the successes and failures.
Man, that's gold. So I wish we had all day to talk.
Yeah.
This is a great talk.
Thanks, bud.
Chat. But at this point, it's time for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business.
Oh man, I geek out over intellectual property. The ownership we have over our own content, especially non-social media content, podcasting specifically, maybe even newsletters, and I can come up with a bunch of other forms of media that we own. The opportunities for us to leverage that, to syndicate it, to aggregate it, to amplify it, and get paid along the way, to license it, is tremendous. I think of how many podcasts I know right now. Can you name 5 new podcasts?
New podcasts?
Yeah,
probably.
Can you name 5 new podcast? Can you name 5 new content platforms?
No.
Maybe on Apple TV that came up over the last. There's a lot, and we talk about the amount of podcasts and how quickly the space is growing. The space isn't growing. We are. It's our episodes, our series, our voice, our likeness, and the amount of content we're creating. Let's think about this. Is upsetting the big market of media. Oh, there's so much growth. Saturation. Beware. Saturation. How many poems? How many songs? How many movies? Why is there this weird energy around a refrain from individual people creating and empowering themselves by creating podcasts? And when I realized that you don't even need to be a host to be a guest, that being a guest is actually one of the most gracious seats. It's like, I feel like it's like Thanksgiving dinner. I'm the oldest son in my family, so like I know how to be a guest. I do my work. I know, what kids are doing, what's the school projects. I come with the gifts. I come with a goodie bag so I can take some stuff with me afterwards. Like I am ready to experience this and let it experience me and inform me. So just hope to inspire people to leap to podcasting, to share your expertise, your experiences. And in this era, 2023, of chat GPT and AI, where we're going to find a lot of new leveled playing field. Like I personally am not a strong, I thought I was not a strong writer. Chat GPT is something that's really helped me get through that bubble and then allows me to get quicker and closer to what I want to say. That it's not about what is being said that matters. It's who's saying it. And there isn't anyone else out there like you. And I know this because it's my job. This is like my calling, is helping people lean into their fascinating, individual, awesome self. Maybe in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was for better or for worse. Like the worst part is a little bit of reality TV, a little bit of Bravo and Housewives and Matchmaker. I got a couple of those shows on my resume. But I'm so focused on helping personal brands and small business owners be empowered by content and helping them leverage it to make the impact that I know they're set out to do. It's really a rewarding time right now to be in content, and anyone with a phone has access to creating content. I love that. That's why in 2007, I had to leave MTV. I suddenly had millions of people I was now qualified to work with.
Yeah.
Up until that moment, it was a very small industry, and I'm happy to have feet in both ends, but it's all about empowering the independent creator for me.
So how do we connect with you then?
Oh, I appreciate that. VPE.tv is my website. That's where I mentioned the Creator Hub. If you're looking for awards, I have 99 plus awards worthy of winning. If you are brand new to creating content and looking for ways to monetize your podcast, I have over 50 monetization platforms. I strongly recommend you be on. I'm on them myself. I'll make starting out in month one, $300 to $5,000 a month sometimes, depending on the brand that reaches out to me. You got to put your name on the list. And I'm a big social person, so say hi to me on LinkedIn. Like, you don't need to wait till the big moment to reach out to me and ask me for advice. Like, I hang out on LinkedIn. I'm empowering the community to be creators, and some of that just means being available. So I make myself really available on LinkedIn, and I appreciate that question. Thank you, Tim.
Wow. Well, I'm definitely going to be in touch.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not a part of any of these communities,
Thanks,
and I'd love to be. So thank you so much for all that
Yes.
information, and thank you so much for rocking out with me today. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast.